All right. It says that we're live. Hopefully you can hear me. All right. So go ahead. Once you get on, maybe you can just hit the chat, say that you're active um, and you're listening and watching. So I'm just going to chill out until 1:45 or so. All right. I hope this works. I hope I'm not alone. Says I got 4 people. Just a second. Yeah, I'm checking it. I joined my own. Okay. There's 5 of you here. Can you guys try the chat? Great. Looks like you guys are checking in. Hola. Ciao. What else? Other greetings. Guten Tag. Konbanwa. Let's see. Buenos dias. Yeah, I'll just keep sitting here for a few minutes. I might get something to drink. Kind of give you a little bit of a preview for those that are already online. Looks like there's about half of you. So this is kind of the format I'm going to be working with. I'm going to be kind of angling my computer screen. Kind of the best I can do at the moment. YouTube Live will not let you use your laptop or iPhones or whatever to record until you have 1,000 subscribers, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But seems like this is working. So anyone else that comes in, please just say hello. I'm here. How you doing? I hope everyone's doing well. Missed you guys. We're going to do the best we can. Right over here, tell you what, I know it's got a lot of glare. It's hard to see. I can show it to you a little better. That is a linoleum cut from a while ago, one of my students. Colors, of course. Over here, the other 2 works you see are by a friend of mine named Jared Tobias. He's in town. He does murals as well as great paintings and drawings. He did the big mural by the railroad tracks downtown, and also the mural on the side of the brass rail, and a couple other places. So it's fun to have his work here. Yeah, still a couple more minutes still. Make yourselves comfortable. I am going to do the same. All I ask, if you guys are having slow internet issues, one thing, I believe this will be recorded, so maybe I'll edit it so you don't see all this part. But so if you need to review it at a later time, maybe the internet's better. Hopefully that's a possibility. I know you guys all have different circumstances now. Everyone does. Some people might have a lot less time. Others might have more. A lot of people might have a lot more responsibilities. Some of your work schedules might have completely changed. If you have a serious issue that's come up with your work and class time, just let me know. That's all I ask. Just communicate with me. I understand that this is a different world that we live in. The fact that I'm talking to you this way is proof of that. Again, when you get in on this, just shoot me a text, or I mean, just hit the chat rather. I'd like to see how many. It says we got 8 people online here. Hopefully get a few more in a couple of minutes. I'm actually amazed how well this seems to be working so far. Hopefully you guys are following the safe practices, washing your hands, all that stuff, keeping your distance. And I hope you got a nice place to stay and to work in, and just be comfortable as make it as normal as we can. At least the sun's coming out now, so that's nice. The weather's been kind of a drag. But yeah, anything else you guys want to say, you can just hit the chat button. This is cool. I like to interact. So you got that packet. So far, only one person had trouble with not having all the materials inside of it. I really hope you have looked at it and inspected it. I can mail you item if you're missing one, but so far only one person that's been the case. I sent that out to that person yesterday. She knows who she is. It's my fault. It's just really hard to put all that stuff together quickly and not make some mistakes. Did the best I could. Besides you, I had other classes I had to get stuff together for. But I appreciated everyone being able to come by and get that, because without these materials, we really would have had a hard time making this class even remotely possible. I'm checking my email real quick here, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so it says we have 9 of you guys. Hopefully 1 or 2 more will join in. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the introduction to this. So you guys were to have watched that video I sent you about transferring your drawing to the block. And this is kind of what I got so far. I am copying. I didn't have time to do my own original. I'm going to do a copy off of an email Nolde print. Really beautiful print, and I've always admired his work. So great textures and marks that I think will be good to kind of replicate for this assignment. So this is my block with the transfer on it. You might have found that after your transfer that it's a bit messy. What you could do is, in terms of the blue, I'm just going to take a little bit of some water on a rag or a paper towel, and you can just kind of wipe that blue off after you've done your Sharpies. That is, don't do this until after your Sharpies. It might still be tinted a little bit with the blue, but before, it's not so important now. I mean, your hands might get messy, but before you print, you're definitely going to want to clean off that blue transfer as best you can, because that could interfere with the quality of your print. So the other thing I have is I have another small piece of linoleum that's going to be kind of for doing some demo. So I got my linoleum, I got my transfer paper. Again, if you don't know where we're at, watch that video about transferring. I do it myself, but that video I thought was really, really nicely done and just perfect for what we're doing. So this is kind of how I mentioned, don't do too much detailed. Just kind of get the outlines, just like we did with the copper plate. It's similar to that in terms of how much information you want to include. The big shapes, big patterns of value. So I have this little piece, and you guys should have a couple of these. You might want to use one of these for like test and doing. So today, if you don't have your transfer done, or you don't want to just jump in and start cutting on this, that's fine. Use one of these little pieces to kind of, mess around with. That's kind of a general thing we do in the class. You get a little test piece to mess with. So you all have a couple of those. Save the second one though. We're going to do something with the second one. Don't mess up both of them. Just mess up one of them. Hang on to the second small piece. Okay, other tools that we're going to be needing. We're going to be needing these guys. We're going to go over how to use these and how to be safe. Where this comes in is This is called a jig holder, or sometimes a block holder. I built this for you guys. This is going to allow you to cut a lot easier at home. In class, you would be using these as well. This is a lightweight one I made that's just big enough for your plates. So you guys be in good shape for that. So, all right. So let's kind of get talking about the tools themselves first. So go ahead and open this guy. Let me angle this a little bit better. Yeah, any questions you guys have, just hit me up in the chat. That would be the best way. If you send me an email, I'll get an alert, so I might check in on you live there too. All right, so you got these two. You got a maroon one and a blue one. They're both identical. They're just different colors to help you kind of visualize which one has a different gouge in it. So if you shake it, you'll hear things jiggling around. Those are going to be your different gouges. So open up the cap, and you should see an assortment of gouges. I should say another tool that you're going to want for the wood or the linoleum cut is a sharp utility knife. It's going to come in handy too. And I myself should have had that. I might have to run out and get mine in a little bit. But all right, so just go ahead and just get all your different gouges kind of laid out maybe on your table in front of you. Hopefully you guys got a good solid work area, like a strong table that you can sit at. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. But if it's flimsy or uncomfortable, you have to bend over. Try to avoid that. Your other tool probably doesn't have anything inside of it, but you're going to see you have these different gouges, and you're going to be basically inserting different tips. This kind of thimble here. Be careful that you don't, when you open this up, that you don't spin it too much and have it completely come apart. Now this is going to be tricky because this is kind of like a high detailed thing. But if you inspect inside of that opening there, let's see, where's my camera at? All right. You'll see that there's a couple of kind of loose, there's like this ball and socket thing, and then there's a couple of like like semicircle pieces of metal. You're going to look at that. You're going to take the nib where it's a circular side. Make sure you don't try to insert it to the other sides. So let me kind of let me talk about the nibs first before we do that. So you have an assortment of nibs in different sizes. This one here, as you can see, hopefully, this one's called a V gouge because it's simply shaped like a V. You have two of those. You have a bigger and a smaller one. They're the same shape. They're just different sizes. It's going to allow you to create different widths when it comes to the mark. You actually might have three of those V gouges depending on your kit. Kind of different. I don't know if my kit's a little different than yours. Maybe they sent some things, but different things, but it'll be all right. This is kind of another bigger gouge. This one kind of looks like, it's more like a U shape. Not quite a U, maybe more of a, I don't know, I guess it is a U, more like a mechanical looking U. This one is definitely called a U gouge, just more of a bend or a curve to it. The last one you have is this is a scoring tool. It's basically like a razor blade. Should be really sharp. Be careful with that. Be careful with all of these because they need to be sharp in order for them to work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, you can insert whatever gouge you want. Inside of your little tool, like I mentioned, there's this kind of ball and socket in there, and those two kind of semicircle shapes. You're going to insert your gouge inside where you see like a space between that piece of metal, that circular half circle shape in that ball shape. Insert your gouge in there. It should go in and out easily at first. If you're forcing anything, you might have it in upside down, or you might need to loosen the thimble here, okay? So this shouldn't be hard to do. You might be putting it in the wrong, you can put it like in two different spots. The spot that has kind of that bigger opening in like a slightly thinner piece of metal, that's where you kind of want to insert it. So make sure you insert it between the ball and that semicircle, not on the outside of the semicircle. If you try to wedge it in there, it's not going to hold it. It should go in kind of pretty cleanly. And again, don't shove it in. And once it's kind of in there a good ways, then you can go ahead and tighten that thimble. And what that'll do, that'll secure that gouge in place. Okay, don't over tighten it. Take a look at it. It shouldn't be like crooked or angled or anything like that. So this is why you got two of these holders, so that you don't have to change your gouges as often as you would if you just had one holder. You know, really experienced or people that get into the linoleum cut would probably have a holder for each gouge. And if you wanted to, you can just order the holders online. And that way you don't have to keep changing the gouges, save you some time and trouble. So this is, I put like one of the V gouges in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the U gouge in my blue one. So some people might just dedicate the blue one for U gouges, the red one for V gouges, whatever you prefer. All right, make sure it's snug. Okay, so that's kind of how you insert these. Now things can happen. People can have difficulties getting these in and out. Sometimes you do have to almost take this apart to get things to work. And hopefully you're not having any trouble getting it out. Be careful getting in and out because you can cut yourself, all right? And that looks okay. And if it ever gets really stuck, you're just gonna take the whole thimble apart. Maybe I'll show you guys that at the end. All right. Other wood carving tools. Yeah, wood carving tools can work. You might want to send me a picture of them. I just want to make sure. These are really similar to wood carving tools. They're just not as hard in steel as wood carving tools. Wood carving tools are actually more ideal in a lot of ways. I used to teach woodcut, and when we use woodcut, we use just wood gouges. The linoleum tools would not work on wood cuts because they're not, the steel isn't hard enough. They would dull right away. And the linoleum's just a little bit safer. And now, especially now that we're at home, it's a lot easier to print with the linoleum. So it's a good thing I did switch because we'd have a harder time doing this remotely. And it is just safer. I've had students get some really wicked cuts with the wood tools. So be careful if you do use wood tools. They're sharper. They're gonna cut more. You know, other things. Pretty much anything that you can make a mark in is going to show up on the wood cut or the linoleum cut. Old habits. I taught woodcut for so long. So anything that can remove material will work. Some people use router bits to do like big ones. So yeah, there's a lot of options when it comes to cutting. You can just use nail heads and make like poke holes in it too. Even your etching needle, you could kind of stab it. You don't need to do much. One thing I'm going to say before we get started is every mark that you make, anything you scratch into this plate or cut into this plate is going to show up. It's going to be part of your image. So it's pretty sensitive. That's why artists like it, why it's useful, but it's also something to be aware of. So again, remember that as we haven't started cutting yet, but before we do, I really want you to remember that every mark that you make is going to be light. It's going to be white. So it's reversed. Everywhere you don't cut, it's going to be black. So that's the key to this. Sometimes people starting off get confused and they do it backwards and then they get like a negative, which isn't always a bad thing. But so you really got to know that the material reverses. So white marks, you're making white marks. And I think when you cut it, it might be a little easier to see that. All right, so speaking of which, cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and angle this down. Hopefully you got it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Glad the sun came out. It gave me a little bit better lighting. I'm going to get a little drink of water before we get started here. All right, so I'm just going to show you just some cutting techniques and how to use the block holder and be safe about this. You know, there's enough bad problems going on in the world right now without you guys having to injure yourselves. So be careful. All right, so the jig holder is to allow you to make cuts without having to do this, putting your hand in front of this. I've seen too many times people doing this. What do you think is going to happen if you do that? It's pretty obvious, but still people do it. I've seen students do it right in front of my face. Don't do it. Do not put your hand in front of the gouge for any reason. You shouldn't have to because of the jig holder. I'm going to get the bigger one first here. Just this might help a little bit better for him to explain. So the jig holder allows you, say block holder rather, the block holder is a jig, allows you to kind of take your lino plate and kind of attack it from different angles that you can do. You can angle it up here in that space between the wood. So yeah, this is the right side up. The right side up should be the one where you have that space between the wood. The back of it, the other piece is the one that holds it on the table's edge. So hopefully you guys all got that. I'm going to send a video by that same guy that did the earlier video that shows you how to use this in case you're not clear. So yeah, this is a cool thing, simple but effective. So that's going to be going up against your table. This one here is going to be face up on the surface of the table. All right. It would work if you did it reverse, but you're not going to have this kind of option with that space in between. You can see my table surface needs to be redone here. So I don't really care about my table. So it's a nice table to work on. Okay. So yeah, I want to just mention that this is why you got that space between the those pieces of wood on the top. Hopefully this will hold up for you guys. I tried to build it well. I used Gorilla Glue and nails and brads. I was a busy man in the wood shop last week. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of cutting. So you can have your hand on the block, just don't put it in front of your cut. So this little piece here, I'm going to start making marks, okay? And one thing I really think is great practice is to try every one of the jigs and play around with them. Now you can also have longer cuts. And everywhere you cut, again, it's going to be white. And I'm using the medium-sized V-gouge, not the little V-gouge. One thing I also want to talk about is the deeper you go, it's not necessarily important that you go really deep, but when you go deeper, you get wider marks. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. And so when you start to make these marks, think back to those images of the German expressionists, and maybe you'll start to get a sense for how those marks that you're making might look similar to what you saw in the prints that you looked at, which is a good thing. I'm going to use my bigger V-gouge or U-gouge here. You can see this. What I like about this one, it makes almost like a teardrop or raindrop shape, which is really kind of emblematic, indicative of the medium. A lot of people like the little V-gouge because it's pretty much like doing a straight line in a drawing. But for this assignment and the other linoleum assignments, Linocut assignments we're going to be doing, I'm going to want you to use all the different gouges, okay? Don't fall in love with one gouge to the detriment of others. This is how you're going to create variety and learn more about the medium. So you're going to get lots of pieces of linoleum that kind of collect. So make sure you have an area that you can make a mess in. Just clean up well. This stuff isn't like toxic or anything like that. It's just flakes. Might be able to vacuum it or just sweep it up. Okay, again, if your parents or roommates or whatever get mad about you making a mess, don't blame me. Hey, you took the class. This is the world we live in. So I might go ahead. Maybe I'll switch one of my gouges. So it just came right out there. Hopefully that's the case with you. Sorry, I'm not there in person to help with this. This is definitely something that's a lot easier to show you in class. All right, so I went to my little V-gouge here. And you're going to see this is really sharp. So a lot of times after you transfer your drawing, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to get to work on mine in a bit. This tool is kind of handy to maybe just go in and maybe start to make your first marks. But the thing about it is you can go do bigger marks over little marks. So you can do marks inside of marks, which really adds a lot of variety to them as well. So these ones that I did earlier, I could go in with my smaller V-gouge and kind of extend those lines a little bit and go work through them and change their shapes and get them with kind of more of a unique quality. So really recommend doing that, smaller marks inside of bigger marks, or taking the bigger tools and going over the areas where you made smaller marks. And I think you'll start to get the hang of it. The angle is really important. Don't go at too sharp of an angle. You're going to be going at probably about a 30-degree angle, 20-degree angle. It depends. If you want like a shallower malign, if you go to a flatter angle, you're going to get less materials removed. If you go at a sharper angle, you're going to dig in a lot deeper and quicker. So, you can almost just shave this surface off. Like if you really wanted to, you could be very, very fine with this. So it's not as cut and dried as just making a mark and not making a mark. You can do a little bit more to it than just making basic marks. But again, mix it up, play around on this block. If you run out of a blocks or something like that, I might be able to send you some more. I would just say also just go to blick.com. United Art, I think, is still shipping. So you can get all this stuff. It's pretty universal online, and it won't take you too long to get it. If you want to do more, or if you run out of things, I think you guys should be set for the class. Okay, so give me 1 minute. What I want to do is I want to get my razor knife. I'm going to show you how to use use the scoring bit in a second, but I'd like to use that in combination with a razor knife. So 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for your patience. In the meantime, you can go ahead and make a bunch of marks. What I'm going to do is just kind of show you guys how to use the score tool. What you can do is you're going to use a pencil or a marker or Sharpies. Just don't use anything with color, because that's, as far as like markers, just use black or a pencil, a light pencil. But if you want to like have a shape, let's just say you have a whole area you kind of want to cut out, okay? What you're going to want to do is let's go ahead and let's put that score tool into one of my holders. Again, make sure that you're putting that kind of U side. A couple of gouges, it can be a little hard to determine what's the front and where's the cutting side and where's the back, the part where you insert it. Okay, so this is basically kind of like a razor knife. I'm going to go over that kind of shape that I just made and just score into the linoleum. Again, you're going to see my handy block holder. It's really nice right now. And by scoring this, you're basically going to be allowing yourself the opportunity to cut out a shape a little bit more like cleanly than you would otherwise. And maybe I don't need my razor knife. Razor knife, I guess, is maybe better for maybe just wood, but if you don't have that, you could try using it with your razor knife, but be very careful. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. The razor knife just goes down a little deeper. Again, guys, just be super careful. Probably best if you just use that scoring tool. So let me just kind of try that. So, all right. So let me go ahead, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and like cut along the side where I scored. And you're going to see that it follows. The tool kind of follows that scored shape. So you're going to get a kind of an exact kind of cut, and it's going to want to stop at the end of that shape. So what you do is you kind of score out the outside shape and then kind of follow it with a bigger tool. I'm using now one of my bigger V gouges. You could use even the bigger tool for that. And so once you get kind of that outside shape cut, it's going to be easier to go then and just kind of clean that area out. Yeah, again, any questions you guys have, just shoot because I can just see them on my screen and just answer them directly. It's hard for me to type right now, so I'll just talk to you. Let me check to make sure I'm not missing any news. I don't think anyone sent any questions recently. It says I got 12 of you live, so that's cool. So I'm missing a couple. That's about a normal class. All right. So now maybe I'll go in and put that bigger tools in. You know, the scoring tool is probably the one you're going to say you're going to use the least, but yeah, I guess maybe. All right. All right, man, a little bit of a jam there. All right, came out. Sometimes your tools might get jammed a little bit. Just kind of wiggle them and see if they can come out. And hopefully you guys won't have problems with that. You know, if there's someone in your house, if it does get jammed, if there's someone in your house that's kind of handy, you might want to have them take a look at it too if you're having problems. All right, so yeah, this tool is going to allow me to kind of clean out areas. I do want to mention, you know, if you want an area that's just like a big area of just white, that's kind of a hard thing to get in this medium. You're going to have a little bit of like finer like black marks inside of that area. And I'll also say is, you know, the less you cut, the darker your image is going to be. This medium, if you want to have a white, it's a lot of work. You're going to have to work to get that versus a black is already there. So sometimes, you know, when you do your sketches, and oh, by the way, I'll comment on each person's drawing eventually. I have a couple already, but I was checking Blackboard and I see you guys uploaded them and it all looks like it's working good. So thanks for doing that. Those of you who have done that, you got till the end of class to upload it. If you're really having troubles getting it in the Blackboard, you can email it to me, but I will say that I think everyone who's emailed it to me saying they weren't sure if it worked, it did work. So I'm glad to see that. It's the first time I've used Blackboard for grading and submission of assignments. So this is new to me. And I had a lot of learning to do this last weekend on that. I think I got it up and running. I also want to mention, not to put too much pressure on you guys, but I'll send out a request pretty soon for the sketches and a picture of your solar plate drawing on that vellum. I took pictures of your actual prints, but I didn't take pictures of your actual drawing on the vellum or your sketches for the assignment. I'm going to grade that. I know maybe a couple of you haven't had a chance to print that assignment. I'm going to give you a waiver on that, but you should have there's no reason that you shouldn't have the sketches and then the drawing on the vellum done because that was due before this all went down. And I'm really glad now that we're a little bit ahead of schedule and got to print those plates, most of you anyhow, because those came out really nice. And, you know, it's one more print that we got done. Obviously, if I had known earlier what was going to happen, I would have given you guys all these materials ahead of time. But none of us did. Sure, maybe we could have been a little bit better prepared following the news and what was going on already, but just hope you guys stay safe. All right, so you can see now, kind of cleaned out that area pretty good. Didn't take too long. There's a bit of a rough texture there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you have an area that's a big area where there's a lot of white, when you roll it, the roller might kind of want to dip down into the middle of it. You know, you're making this kind of valley. So the roller in the middle of this area, so if I was to roll it, the area in the middle would be most likely to pick up a little bit of ink. There's ways to kind of avoid that. Now you're going to be using the brayers for that you guys got in your kit. some of you got wider brayers than others. I had to just kind of pull them out and give you what I had, and so they're on the house. So, and again, if you want more brayers, just go to blick.com and just search Speedball brayers. They're not that expensive at all. They're pretty cheap. If you think you're going to be getting into more printmaking, it's a good investment. Also, if you want more inks, you can get them there too. I'd get the water-based Speedball water-based inks. Some of you got this like super black one. Some of you got the Speedball ink. They're both water soluble. They both work really well for what we got. But in the future, if you order more, I would probably just order the Speedball water soluble block printing ink. And you get it in colors too. Sorry about that. We're not going to be getting into the color printmaking in this course now. But I'm more of a black and white guy anyhow. All right, so playing around with this scrap piece. Really mess around with this though, guys. Don't just like do a couple of marks. I want you to really explore this. All right, so I am making quite a bit of a mess here. I'm going to go back to my the block with my transfer on it, the main block, and just kind of go over that a little bit. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that your image is going to flip. It's going to be the same orientation that you drew it, but when you go to print, it's going to flip. Printing is going to be next week, so don't worry about that. You should have everything you need for that. I'll get into that big time next week. But this is going to be basically your assignment going forward is to cut as much as you think you possibly need to before next Monday's class. So it should keep you busy, keep you on a similar pace of what we've been doing. So I mentioned earlier that you might want to start off with like a smaller tool, like that small skinny V-gouge for starters here. When you work on your actual, and what's going to be your image. And again, you just need to have that turned in today. I am going to comment each person's image or drawing. So look for that, my comments. I'll do that probably right after. We're not going to be live all class, by the way. But look for that. After I kind of go off the live, I'll start commenting on people's drawings. And eventually what I'm going to do is make a folder. Whoops, this one's getting a little bit tricky. I'm going to make a folder where everyone's work will be visible to each other so we can have comments about it. I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but there's a discussion board that I can create in Blackboard. I might also simply, maybe I'll just go YouTube Live and just look at people's pictures. I don't know how it's going to work. We'll figure it out. There's also another thing called WebEx, where you can do live. Everyone can communicate with each other in a conference format, video conference. So I'm going to try that out with one of my smaller classes tomorrow and see if it works. If it does, we might be doing that. It's a free app, or free to join with an email, and then I can host a meeting, and I'll be able to see every one of your faces on the screen, and we can all talk to each other simultaneously. So that would be the next best thing to being there in person. But I'm going to test it out with a smaller class first. You just need to have a good internet connection. All right, so talking about just cutting out kind of the basic shapes. I mean, I think you guys probably got the idea of how this works, but I might just go like lightly over like the outlines first. Remember, you only want to cut where you want it to be white. But in my print here by Emil Nolde, there's a lot of there's some serious textures and marks, and I don't want to be too careful because the artists that I'm looking at, and these artists that you guys looked at, all these expressions, you can tell one thing, they weren't what you'd say, like, for the most part, too careful. They were pretty bold. And doesn't mean they couldn't be careful in spots, but the textures and marks are really what we're going for. Given what's going on in the world today, I feel like looking at these expressionists, a pretty good pretty good thing to look at in terms of, they were going through some crazy stuff then too. There was that Spanish flu in the 1917 and then World War One. So there's pretty traumatic stuff they were going through that. I know this stuff is bad now, but there's been bad stuff going on in the past too. But again, hopefully we can all just stay at home for a bit, just make some art, make something worthwhile come out of all this. Because you can't really have much of a choice. But I do hope everyone's doing well. It might be if you guys had anything that you're doing that you're enjoying, or if there's any aspect of this quarantine homestay stuff that you like, it'd be kind of fun to hear like what something that you might unexpectedly gotten something positive that's come out of this, I guess. All right, so I'm just going lightly over this kind of shape of the figure. So you can see where you do cut, it does appear lighter. So that's a nice kind of feature or asset of this medium, is that since it does print white where you cut, the fact that it looks lighter where you cut really helps. All right, so I think you guys kind of got the idea. Now what I'm gonna do is I'll just go over these smaller marks and just kind of cut out some bigger marks. Again, avoid making outlines like all over the place. You can make tiny ones and then go over them. You don't want to have like a line outline a figure. Have that either be a light value or a darker value, but have it kind of stop and start kind of a little bit more precise. So you're not going to actually get like clean edges too. I mean, you're going to have like these kind of jagged edges, things like that. It's really what the medium is all about. Again, if you're trying to make this look too clean, too much like a draw, like a pencil drawing, or even just a pen drawing. The pen drawings with markers are good substitutes, but still, it's not quite the same thing as this. Nothing really replicates this. You can see I'm cutting sideways too. If that works for you, you can try that. Right. Let's see a couple other things. There is one other kind of tip I want to kind of show you. Well, here's what I got so far. Let me see here. It's a little better. So I started just kind of cutting this out. I could just keep extending lines kind of through that. During the weekend, if you want to text me, or not text me, but email me pictures of your plate in progress, go ahead and do that. I'm happy to take a look at those. But I did want to show you one other kind of cutting technique that I have yet to mention. And come on. All right. Let's see. Which one do I want to use? I'm going to use just the regular V-gouge, kind of the medium-sized one. So one thing I like to do is I like to kind of take my tool and kind of rock it back and forth when I cut sometimes. And when I do that, I get this almost like a stitched pattern, which is like right there. And you can use different tools for that. I'm going to use a bigger one here, see what that does. And that's going to give you like, oh, this is looking really cool. It really does look like stitches. Let's see where we're at, right there. So that can do a lot. You can take that, you can go over areas where you're already cut too with that. I call this one as my own nickname, walking the dog, because you just kind of take it. All right, let's see, someone says lots and lots of video games, playing with pets, that's cool.